Hello everyone and welcome to the first Nutmeg Investor Update of 2018. We hope you had a great festive season and best wishes for the new year. My name's Neil Alexander, I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Nutmeg, and today I'm joining Shaun Port for this update. Hi Shaun.
Hi Neil.
So Shaun, can you tell us a bit about what's been going on in the markets?
Yes, so in December we saw continued gains from both developed and emerging market equities, and we also saw a positive return from bonds. So it was a really good month in December. Economic growth was a bit stronger than expected in the US and in Japan, and also commodity prices rebounded. So that's generally quite a positive environment for equity markets. Now, close to home, the UK moved on to the second stage of Brexit negotiations, which actually didn't really have much of an impact on bond markets, the equity market, or the pound. Interesting development, but didn't really have much of an impact.
So December was another good month, and what does that mean for the performance of our portfolios at the end of 2017?
Yes, so 2017 was a good year for equity investors in particular, not so good for lower risk portfolios where we had lots of bonds. So if you look at our lowest risk portfolio, we saw a very small loss, and that's because government bonds of less than 5 years, what we call short dated bonds, actually saw a loss for the year. So that was in those lowest risk portfolios, it's quite hard to avoid a loss when you've got bonds falling in value. But actually with portfolios with equities, which is generally most of our portfolios, apart from the lowest risk, we saw some really good gains. So if you look at 2017 as a whole, the FTSE 100, the main barometer of the UK stock market, returned almost 12% with dividends included without any cost. So it was a really good year in general for UK equities, but actually the UK was a laggard. So it was a good year to be a global investor. The US stock market returned more than 20%, emerging markets more than 30%. But unfortunately, there's a bit of a caveat here. The pound rallied by almost 10%, so it depressed those returns somewhat. So it was a good year to be a global investor, and in general, equity markets had a really positive gain. So we saw returns of up to 13.5% in our highest risk portfolio, around 7 to 8 in our medium risk portfolios.
Right. So we've covered 2017. Looking forward as we move into 2018 now, what have you and your team done? What changes have you made to the fully managed portfolios going forward?
So we hold both the FTSE 100 and the FTSE 250, so large companies in the UK, but also medium and small companies. We've actually reduced our holdings in medium and small companies. They performed really well last year. We think it was a good time to reduce that exposure, and we've put that money into Swiss and US equities, hedged for currency exposure. So that currency fluctuation doesn't have an impact on the returns from those equity markets.
Thanks, Shaun. Now, this month we would like you to answer 2 customer questions.
Great.
Good. The first question comes from Dave via Twitter, and Dave has asked, how is Nutmeg likely to perform in a recession, whether in the UK, the US or globally? I'm curious to hear what kind of temporary loss we might expect in a recession similar to 2008.
That's actually a really good question. We spend a lot of time thinking and focusing on where we are in the business cycle. Where is the global economy going? It's really important to know whether the global economy is accelerating, it's decelerating, whether we're going into recession, particularly in the US. These are really important questions and things that we focus on almost a weekly basis. Where are we at in the global cycle? At the moment, I think we're still in a good part of the economic cycle. The economic cycle doesn't die of old age. It dies because of tightening of monetary policy generally, because interest rates are going up, that slows the economy, and then we go into recession. So I think global growth now is accelerating, but when we get to the middle of the year, people are going to be looking to 2019 and say, is the US going into recession? I don't think it is, but it's going to be an important question to focus on. When it comes to losses, we're clearly going to manage portfolios around these kind of big events like recession. Now, if we thought we were going into a downturn, we would certainly be reducing risk in portfolios, maybe buying some more bonds and other assets that help us during that. So that would actually reduce some of the losses, but wouldn't completely offset any of those losses. So we wouldn't expect to see gains in those environments, for example. It's just less loss than normal. So it's an important part that we look at, and I think we would manage portfolios around that economic cycle.
Great, thanks Shaun. And our second question comes from Phil. He sent this question in via Facebook, and Phil has asked quite an open question. What's coming up for Nutmeg this year?
Yeah, so 2018 is going to be another very busy year for Nutmeg. To kick off, at the start of the year, we implemented new rules called MiFID II within our business. They affect all financial services firms, and they're quite significant changes. From a customer perspective, from your perspective, it changes the way we present costs and charges, which is quite important. Also, new legislation called GDPR, and that's really about how we hold customer data. It affects every business, every institution. We have to relay why we hold our data and give you extra permissions about what we hold and what we don't hold on you. So really good legislation. That's going to be implemented in May. More specifically to Nutmeg, we're about to release our Android app in the next few weeks. And finally, if you'd like to know more about our outlook for investment returns in 2018, you can look at our blog on our website written by Brad, who's our Senior Investment Manager.
Thanks, Shaun.
Thanks, Neil.
And thanks to Phil and Dave for their questions. As always, if you want to join in the conversation or ask questions for next month, please feel free to contact us via email, social media, or in the comments section below this video. And new for 2018, we'd like you to meet more of the Nutmeg team. So from next month onwards, Shaun will be joined by different Nutmeggers from across the business who will be posing the questions in the next investor updates. Thanks for joining us. See you next month.